Hey, what's up, you guys? Welcome back. So today I'm going to get straight into it. I am talking today about how I struggle with and am constantly still struggling with finding the balance between all of the apps that I work within. So hi, if you're new, my name is Jackie. I'm a full-time reseller on Poshmark and eBay, owner of Goodie Stash, and so I'm constantly on Poshmark, I'm constantly on eBay, I'm constantly on Instagram. I have to constantly be checking, do I have offers? Do I need to ship out items? Do I have sales? I need to be listing. There's like a certain amount of things that I have to do to keep my business alive and running, but then I struggle with finding the balance of time to disconnect entirely and dedicate that time to, personal connection with my family. Also, I dedicate that time to like deep concentrated work so I can pursue creative projects and I can work on things in an uninterrupted fashion. So I struggle to balance the two, and that's what I'm talking about today. This is something that I've struggled with for years, but I'm becoming more aware of like how my personality specifically reacts to at apps that are built to be very addictive. So the nature of Facebook, the nature of Instagram, the nature of Poshmark is to be as addictive as possible because they want you to stay on the app, because if you stay on the app you're more likely to make a purchase, or just that you're using the app and that's what they want. For Facebook and Instagram and Poshmark though, I think it all is specific to, they want you to purchase something, and that's why they have so many ads and influencers and people that are selling things, is to ultimately sell something to you. And so the longer you're on there, the more chance that you are going to buy something, essentially, for those three specifically. So for me personally, I have an addictive personality, and don't get me wrong, I love technology today. I used to not like technology for obvious reasons. When I was out in my addiction, the main thing I saw technology for was a weapon to be used against me. So you could essentially catch me doing something wrong, breaking the law, and use that against me to get me caught up, to send me back to jail, to send me to prison. So the reason I was against technology is I didn't want to be recorded. I didn't want you to have any evidence on me of me doing anything wrong that could hurt me or get me put away for a really long time. So I didn't like technology because it was a threat to my livelihood at the time, which was all illegal. Everything I was doing was illegal to get money, to get drugs, to continue the vicious cycle of my addiction. Today is a lot different. See, I'm not hiding anything. I'm not doing anything wrong. Of course, I want to maintain a certain degree of privacy, as anybody would want to, but I'm a lot more willing to share things online, and I'm a lot more willing to spend time online because I can see the internet is a very powerful tool for learning, for building a business, for just like accelerating how quickly you can get access to people and information, and I very much appreciate that about the internet. So I'm definitely not anti-internet, but I have noticed me having an addictive personality, there are certain things that I really struggle with, and one of those is not getting sucked into social media really deep, so that I'm too distracted to get into those deep work periods that I need to be able to evolve and push past some of these mental blocks that I struggle with. I have to have a certain degree of restraint when I use these apps, because if not, I fall back into the black hole. And let me tell you a little bit about that. Okay, so when I first started on Poshmark, I was so addicted to the app that I would compulsively share, follow, so much so to where the muscles in my hand were cramping. I don't know if they were cramping up, but basically my hand had a serious pain, so much so to the point where my hand actually hurt. And so I had to get a stylus to be able to continue without having that issue within my hand. And that, I say that just to illustrate just like how I was like going crazy. I was so hooked on it in the beginning. I was just like, I couldn't stop. I didn't want to stop. I wanted to go, 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 go. And it was kind of like that with me for Facebook for a while. Like, I would say I didn't like Facebook, but then I liked it and I didn't like it, and I would kind of go back and forth because it was like I felt this compulsion to like check in and like post something, and I didn't understand much about social media either. So it was just like in my mind it was like, okay, so you post things like that you're proud of or that you want people to see that you're actually doing in your life, and then like they'll like it or comment on it. And so I was like showcasing like the best version of myself on Facebook. When I first got on Facebook, when I first was on social media, it was Facebook. And I fell into the trap of thinking like you're supposed to post the best version of yourself. And I was doing that without even really thinking about it. Like, of course, I wouldn't want to post embarrassing things about myself. But nowadays on Instagram and on YouTube, I'm much more relaxed because I just want to be like myself, good, bad, and in between. Whereas in the beginning it was like I also felt that compulsion to like check everybody else's post, and then sort of even without realizing I was falling into the comparison trap. So I was kind of comparing myself to others, and then like I would get off the app and kind of feel worse about myself. And it was also like that when I started Instagram. All of a sudden now it was like I was seeing all these entrepreneurs and small business owners, and they're posting like their milestones and their progress and their gross sales numbers. And at first I was really excited, like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like, look at them go. This is so inspiring. But then I noticed like if I would get on there and I was in a bad headspace, I would come off feeling even worse. Like, again, falling into that comparison trap and being like, like wanting to be happy for them. But deep inside, I was just kind of like talking shit on myself, like, what the fuck are you doing wrong? Like, why can't you get your shit together? This person has 2 kids and they're making $250,000 a year, and here you just have 1 kid and you can't even get past, $30,000 a year. And I was kind of like tearing myself down in that way. But at the end of the day, it's like, I'm not them and they're not me. And maybe their child doesn't have special needs. Maybe they don't have a long-standing history of addiction, depression, bulimia, all these other things that they're battling through, anxiety, just to get through the day sober, let alone run their business and take care of their family. So see, and they have their own set of issues that I'm not seeing. And because of that, I couldn't compare myself, but also because I seem to like automatically compare myself to people without realizing it, because I knew I was doing it, because I would get off the app and I would feel worse about myself if I was having a bad day or kind of feeling depressed or kind of already feeling anxious. And then I get on the app, whether it was Instagram or Facebook, not on Poshmark. This did not affect me on Poshmark, but it was like Instagram or Facebook, and I get on there and I see, whoever, like Susie down the street, or Chelsea from high school is posting like her perfect pictures of her and her family, and they're perfectly happy and they're doing arts and crafts together. Or Susie down the street is, killing it with her workouts and whatever it is. And here I am feeling depressed, barely able to get out of bed. And then I feel worse because I see all this stuff they're doing and I feel like I'm not doing enough. But the reality was, I was in my early recovery. I was in my early sobriety. The only thing I could really focus on in those early days was just staying sober. That was enough. That was more than enough for me. And that was taking all of my energy in my very early recovery. So me being on Facebook in my very early recovery was actually hindering me quite a bit. And it took me a really long time to realize just how my specific relationship with Facebook wasn't benefiting me at all, but it was sort of holding me back. Okay, now before I say what I'm getting ready to say, realize, for one, I still don't have a grip on this stuff. I still struggle with this stuff. And for two, I'm just constantly trying to be more aware of it and make little, like, fine tune my routine and my schedule and set little guidelines in place for myself so that I don't get carried away, because so that I don't fall into the black hole of sharing for 3 hours or following for 3 hours or just scrolling my feed for an hour and a half. Whereas that's not actually benefiting me at that point. That's really hurting me and hindering my progress. So I know that today, but back then it took me a long time to catch on to that. And I don't necessarily need to be posting every day. And what I post needs to be authentic. It doesn't need to be like the sugar-coated version of myself that I thought in early recovery. And I think I thought that also because I was like trying to play catch up. Like in my early recovery, there I was, newly sober, moved back in with my parents, still constantly relapsing, not even able to get a grip on my sobriety. And I see like on Facebook all these perfectly portrayed lives, and I think when I start to gain sobriety and I start to be able to maintain my recovery, I start to think that I need to post the good parts of my day, because I want to shine, a light, and I want to show that I'm doing right now. I'm proud of my progress, and I'm wanting to kind of boast that. And I was going about it in the wrong way is all I'm trying to say. And I'm not anti-social media by any means. I enjoy Instagram. I really enjoy TikTok, although I'm brand new over there. But I think it's good in small doses. I think it's good as a balance for me. So I ended up actually deleting Facebook altogether, because what I first did was I took like a week break off of it, and I didn't interact with the app at all for an entire week. And then after that, I really contemplated like, okay, you know what? Like, I feel like I need to get rid of it. And then I would go back and forth like, well, am I going to lose all the videos? Am I going to lose all the people that I'm keeping in contact with on there? But then I just had to tell myself, okay, well, if these people care about me, they'll contact me in real life. Once I got rid of it, I felt lighter. I felt like a load had been lifted off. But then once in a while, I hope people will be like, hey, did you see what I posted? And I have to be like, not on Facebook. But when I say that with a smile, because like I don't miss it. For me personally in my life, Instagram suits me better, and TikTok suits me better, and YouTube suits me better. So those are my personal choices for social media outlets. But let me share so far what I've learned on this topic. And my top 3 resources so far are Deep Work by Cal Newton. I hope I'm saying his last name right. I'll insert the titles here in case I'm pronouncing these wrong. Lynchpin by Seth Godin. And currently, I don't know if this is going to be a favorite or not, but I'm enjoying An Audience of One right now. Those books, along with many YouTube videos and podcasts and other resources, is where I learned a lot about this topic. And so I'm just going to share briefly like the most useful points that I've applied in my life. I could go on and on about this topic forever. I won't bore you with that. So every time we receive an email, a text message, a like, a comment, a social media notification, dopamine is released in our brain. And that is a very addictive feeling. It's also a very fleeting feeling. So it provides you with this sort of false sense of satisfaction. And then you want to do it again and again and again. You want to post, photo, comment, share, like, consume. And so you can keep getting those dopamine rushes. It's also the reason, like, a lot of times when I'm with people, I think I used to be a lot more like this in my early Poshmark days. I would like hear that notification, and also with eBay it's still really bad because it actually makes that cha-ching noise, and so I'm like, oh, let me see what I sold. But before I was like just going in just to check, just to be checking, like, oh, let me check. But like when I'm with people in person, a lot of times people are not with me. Like they're constantly on their phone, they're constantly on their computer. And in those instances, I'm able to experience firsthand just how distracting the internet can be, and how and how disconnected I can feel to somebody even though I'm right there with them. So I'm making a conscious effort on my part to work on my behaviors so that when I'm with people, because there's plenty of people in my life that do give me the time when I'm with them, they are very little on their phones, and they're very much in the moment with me, and I can feel that and I appreciate that. So I'm trying to work on that in myself so that I can also be that way, to be more like that, because then the time that I have with people is, I've experienced it's at a higher quality and I feel more connected with them than like, and I'm making a conscious effort to spend far less time with people who are distracted while I'm with them, because it's like, okay, I understand like we're related or whatnot, and we have a certain obligation to see each other from time to time. But if I'm not benefiting from the relationship and I don't feel a connection, then our like quality of interaction is so low, I'm very much limiting my time with those people. I think I touched on this already a little bit. The apps are designed in a way to be very habit forming. They want you to stay on the app. Instagram wants you to keep taking pictures. Facebook wants you to keep checking for likes. YouTube wants to keep the watch time up, the view time up. They want you on the apps for a reason. So they're designed to really suck you in. So before, I always thought of my environment, and I was aware that environment can play a really big role on, how productive you can be. I was very much aware of how an environment can influence you, because I've been in highly negative environments for years, toxic environments, living with drug dealers, being in basically verbally abusive relationships that went both ways. Like, I wasn't just being abused, I was being abusive, my partner was being abusive, and living together and being in these relationships for years on end. So I know how toxic and how an environment can really influence you in a bad way and really hinder your ability to grow and evolve. So I'm very familiar with like physical environment and the impact that can have on a person. But the book opened my eyes to the fact of your environment is more than just physical. And this is my favorite quote on the subject. This is by Jim Bunch. I'll put it up here. Everything that you see, hear, smell, taste, and touch is an environment. Those environments are either adding energy or draining energy. They are either increasing your focus or decreasing your focus. And that was just like, that really opened my mind up to, what am I letting in as far as my like digital environment, and how could I like fine tune this? And that was during the time I started to go through my feed and just, unfollow, like especially on, at the time it was Instagram. It was like, okay, I'm just gonna unfollow a bunch of people, and then I'm gonna follow the ones that are adding value, they're adding positivity, they're adding light into my newsfeed. And I'm no longer going to see any of the negative type posts that are drama fueled, energy draining, basically waste of my time, right? So that was a huge thing. I'm no longer going to check my emails in the morning and be distracted by all these sales and promotions that are going on. I'm no longer going to do things like that. I'm going to try to fine tune it. God, I'm almost embarrassed to admit this, but in my early recovery, I used to like sit around. This was when I had to move back in with my parents. This was when I still couldn't stay sober, but I was really trying to stay sober, but I hadn't gotten it down yet. And I would like be drinking still. I was no longer using drugs, but I was still just laying around drinking, being very unproductive. You guys, I was watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians and Pawn Stars, like binging, watching hours upon hours every day of these reality TV shows. It wasn't serving me whatsoever. Yeah, so with the Kardashians, it was purely entertainment, and I still think there's a place for that. But I'm saying I wasn't doing it in moderation at all. And I'm not interested in keeping up with the Kardashians anymore. If that's your thing, no judgment whatsoever. It's just these things weren't serving me. And so I found other other ways to like de-stress and decompress in a way that's more healthy for me and more meaningful. So for instance, I love to listen to podcasts. My absolute hands down favorite podcast is How I Built This with Guy Raz or Guy Raz. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but it's amazing. He interviews entrepreneurs that have really grown their business from, he talks about the very early stages of their business and asks them questions all throughout, so you can kind of get like this full picture of their journey. And I learn so much. I get really inspired. I get really excited, and I relate so much to those stories because a lot of them, you know, they had a really hard struggle getting started, or at some point in their journey, things got really hard. And it's refreshing to hear that, because a lot of times when you hear stories of success, you just see like the end result, the output, and you don't see those really early stages, those really rough nights. And I love that his podcast kind of dips into the highs and lows both. So it's just, I love it. And back in the day when I was like watching Pawn Stars, I guess I wanted to be flipping things. This was before I was flipping things, and I was like, oh, it's like I'm doing my research, because you know, I'm like learning about all these items, and then I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna buy a storage unit and I'm gonna do this one day. But at the time I was like still drinking and wasn't able to get my shit together, and I wasn't even able to remember a lot of the stuff because I was drinking so much. But anyway, when I actually started going out and flipping things, I started to realize that Pawn Stars wasn't serving me at all, because for one, I didn't share like the core values of the main stars on the show. And also the things that they were showcasing on the show were quite rare, whereas like in the area that I'm in, the stuff that I was able to get a hold of, I wasn't able to acquire those things, so it didn't really serve me to learn about those things. It served me more to do actual research. It just served me better to get into the estate sales, to get into the thrift stores, to go to the garage sales, to see what I could get my hands on and what I could afford, and then run comps and see what the stuff is selling for. Basically learn that way, learn in real life versus watching TV for hours on ends on something that I probably was never going to actually come across in my regular life. So that was huge. So cutting those types of things out was huge for me. And I still, from time to time, I like some like mindless entertainment. There was a series on Amazon I watched, Modern Love. It was mindless entertainment, but sometimes I need that. It's like sometimes I'll sit down to watch a movie. I don't do it very often because I'm not able to like really chill out for very long, and when I do, my mind is often still going. But yeah, I get like there's a time and a place for mindless entertainment, but I was not doing it in a way that was well balanced whatsoever. So I'm just putting that out there. So nowadays, I'm much more picky with who I follow and what content I consume. I want to consume something that's either going to teach me something, that's going to inspire me, that's going to spark something in me. So since I've made that shift and I'm not just sitting down like watching traditional TV, whatever pops up, oh, whatever's on is on. It's a much more conscious effort, you know? So then on the flip side of that, okay, so let me touch on this real quick. So I've also started limiting my time on apps. So there isn't like a hard and fast rule of how much time is on this, how much time is on this. But I very much like a lot of times with Instagram, I'll tell myself, okay, you're getting on here for a specific reason. You're posting, you're checking your messages and replying, and you have 15 minutes. Anything extra, you can get off and come back later. Like, so usually that doesn't leave me time to scroll my feed a lot. But as I am scrolling my feed, I'm trying to find the posts that really stand out to me the most in those 5 or 10 minutes. I drop a comment on the ones that I'm able to consume and appreciate, and then boom, I'm off and on to the next. Same thing with YouTube. Like a lot of times I tell myself, if you want to watch something like that's not super educational, like a haul video. I don't find haul videos to be super educational because what you're picking up is going to be different than what I'm picking up. What sells for you isn't necessarily going to sell for me. So it's like one of those things you kind of take it with a grain of salt. But as a reseller, I do sometimes just like to watch haul videos for whatever reason. So I'm like, okay, if you want to watch a haul video, watch it while you're eating your lunch or watch it while you're eating your breakfast or whatever. So that it's like not getting in the middle of my work. So there's always a reason I'm logging in. With Poshmark, I'm getting ready to log in and share my closet. When I'm done sharing my closet, I'm hopping off and I'm going on to my next activity. And then I will check my notifications after I'm done with whatever else I'm working on. There's like, it's not like I hear a ding and I go check. That's the other thing. I adjust the app for how I need to use it. Like a lot of times when you join an app, it's like, do you want to have push notifications or whatever it is? I'm like, no, I don't, because when I'm off the app, I'm off the app. I want to be going to the app when I'm ready to get on the app. I don't want to be responding to every last little ding and notification, because then I'm going to be distracted every time somebody likes something, every time somebody comments, every time somebody just like, do you know how many times people like your stuff on Poshmark? That's all well and good, but it doesn't need to get in the middle of what I'm working on in the present moment. Like, all that can wait, you know? I've also recognized that not every activity requires my full attention. So, for instance, when I'm sharing my Poshmark closet, I'm going to listen to a podcast, because then I can be feeling like I'm learning something, or I'm connected in some way, or it's a positive thing. Whereas before, like, I felt like sharing was such a chore before. I had to do it. I don't know why it took me so long to figure out that I could listen to a podcast while I shared. Yeah, technically I could watch a TV show while I shared, but for me that doesn't work, because when I'm watching TV, I actually stop a lot and look up, and this is also why YouTube while I share or YouTube while I list doesn't work, because I actually, if there's a visual element to something, not so much with just like me talking to the camera, but a lot of the stuff I watch would be like DIY projects or thrift hauls or fashion like lookbooks, and so there is that visual element, and so I would find myself like sharing, basically looking up, share, look up, share, or listing, look up, continue listing, and it was taking so much longer to do my task than needed. But if I'm listening to a podcast, I mean, I'm just cranking out these shares. It's almost like I might as well be listening to music. Like, I'm just able to get it done faster. There isn't that visual distraction, and I'm able to listen to them because sharing doesn't take any thought. So during times like that, when the activity requires little to no thought, that's the time to put on a podcast. That's the time to put on something like that. Now, there are other times when it doesn't serve me to have something like that on in the background, a podcast, any sort of thing that is requiring me to like listen and process the information. So if I'm putting up new listings, I need to actually be in a place where I can think and I can write out my descriptions. They just flow right out of me when I don't have like extra noise going. I know some people like list while they watch YouTube, and for me, I tried that and that does not work for me. Like, I'm able to get my work done so much more efficiently and so much faster if I just have like straight up classical music playing in the background. And that might sound weird, like I don't even think I really actually enjoy classical music, but it's just something I tested out and it actually works really well for me. Having dead silence, I still find myself getting easily distracted, even if it's within my own thoughts. Okay, so the last tactic I'm going to share today, because I don't want this video to go on forever. Hopefully it hasn't gone on too long. And my husband completely disagrees with this tactic, but it is, I silence my phone, I silence my iPads, I silence anything that can make noise when I'm getting ready to go into like a deep concentrated work, and I time block. So anybody that does time block probably can understand why I do this. So when you're going into a deep work and you get a notification, your phone rings and you have to take the call, or even if your phone rings and like in my case I go over and check it, and it's like, okay, it's a number I don't know. I'm like in the middle of something, so they'll leave a message if it's important, that sort of thing. it interrupts like the state that I'm in, the flow of the work. It interrupts my workflow. It really does. And there's even been statistics that say something like, I think it was something as high as like 15 or 30 minutes it takes you to get back into the same flow that you were in. And that's if you get back into it at all. So for me, this especially worked better when my son was in school. So like right now, what I do is I get him on an activity and I set him up a little like area that he can work and do his thing. And then I come down here and I get into this and I just power through it. I don't have my phone. I don't have any notifications on. So I can just like, I don't know, I just like, I can create freely without those distractions. And I was doing it while he was in school, and my husband didn't agree with it because he was like, well, what if the school calls you and you need to get up there? And I was like, yeah, I understand that, and I don't want to be blowing off the school by any means. But on the other note, I was like, I noticed such a dramatic difference when I have even 1 hour of uninterrupted time, maybe an hour and a half worth of time where I'm just working on a project, I'm just creating something, I'm just researching, whatever it is, where I'm just working on that one task, and it requires a high level of concentration and thought. And when I did this, I saw such a huge impact. I didn't want to go back. I wasn't going back. So I was like, I understand if his school calls. So what I do is I check my phone right before I go into the project. I check all my notifications because that's just me. Like everybody has to find what works for themselves. And I don't want to ever come across like I know everything. I feel like I know nothing, but I'm constantly excited to share things when I learn them, because I feel like what I knew yesterday and what I know today and what I'm going to know tomorrow, it's always changing. I'm always trying to evolve and grow. So the day that I say I know everything or I'm an expert on this subject is the day I would unfollow myself or unsubscribe from myself, because then I'm no longer teachable, you know? So anyway, I can check all these apps. I check to make sure nobody's tried to call me. And this is what I do right before I get into a deep work zone. And I also will like take a piece of paper, and this was Mel, what's her name? Like that self-help guru chick. This was her tip. You write down everything that's on your brain. It's called a brain dump. I dump out everything that's on my mind. So I dump out, oh yeah, I'm supposed to run to Hy-Vee and get milk today. Oh, I need to switch that load of laundry. Just whatever thing it is. Oh, I need to get a workout in. Anything that's on my mind, I dump it out on that paper, check the notifications, and then I start getting myself set up for the deep work. So whether I'm going to go out and take a walk to kind of get myself primed, whether I'm going to do a little light exercise to kind of get my creative juices flowing, then I get into my deep work routine. And so I would just argue, like, if the school called, okay, yes, of course I want to be available for my son, but if the school called and I was in a work meeting, I'm sure they would understand. Now, essentially, I'm in a work meeting with myself because I'm self-employed. I'm the only employee. But I mean, I feel like my son, he's at a safe place. This was like when he was in school. This was my argument. He's in a safe place. He's with a lot of responsible, caretaking adults. So yes, if they called me while I was in a deep work session, I would call them back as soon as I noticed that I missed the call, right? So I feel like that was something that I struggled with initially, but it was like, you know what? There's plenty of people that work and they go to meetings and they don't check their phone while they're in the meeting. So this is essentially that same thing. So that is what I would argue to my husband, who's like, you can't just turn your phone off. But for me, I have to disconnect sometimes. I have to go out in nature and just go walk. I have to like be completely disconnected from my devices, and then I'm able to come back refreshed and focused. So that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any tactics that you use, if you have any tips on how you deal with balancing the technology and all the distractions, as well as getting in chunks of deep, uninterrupted work time, I would love to hear that. And until next week, stay strong, stay grateful, and stay positive. This always bothers me when I'm watching YouTube videos and I can't see the full graphic of the shirt the person's wearing.